This is the refreshed Meyer Rappier by Malleus Martialis, featuring a redesigned hilt. Let's get into it. Quick disclaimer, this was a free review copy provided to me by Malleus for my input as well as some pre-production feedback. But maybe a spoiler for the review, I loved it so much that I did locally commission a custom scabbard for it at my own expense, because I just like it that much. Now, as I just said, the main thing here is this redesigned hilt, specifically the knuckle bow, which used to look a lot more like this one. Now, I had actually considered buying the previous Meyer model, but I passed it over because of that knuckle bow, which has plenty of space when you have a finger over the guard like this, but if you translate that onto a grip where your hand is completely below the cross, that really eats into your glove space. Now, I've got a big old disc pommel here, but you get the idea. A much better fit with that slimmed down knuckle bow. You're still going to be hard pressed to fit a mitten in there, but that's just kind of par for the course with knuckle bows and mittens. But you should be able to fit most 5 fingers in there comfortably enough. The pommel remains unchanged from the previous model, but now that you have this reshaped knuckle bow, if you need the extra space, you can now actually get down into that area, and you can see just how much room you can steal if you really need to. The gentle slope to the pommel also allows you to kick the blade forward and get it more in line with your forearm without having the pommel digging into your palm. It's a very comfortable fit like this. And the hilt, as per usual for Malleus, is basically bomb-proof. I have subjected this not just to side swords, but military saber and longsword as well. And the hilt's scuffed up a little bit, but this is nothing severe whatsoever. And I've been using this regularly, weekly, for, about 5 months now. And to the point of durability, the blade has taken a slight set to the right, but nothing out of the ordinary. Though I should note, I did take a hit to the flat at one point that induced a bend that you could see without bearing down on it, but that worked out and it has not resurfaced since. And this is the part where I have to address Malleus's general approach to blades, where they put a great emphasis on the handling characteristics of the blade and maybe focus a bit less on making it a tank that'll just go and go and go and go and go against anything. You need to bear in mind that this is not going to be a bruiser that you can just clobber for years on end and expect it to be fine. Take a little bit of care with it. It is still going to be durable and reliable, but it is not that kind of sword. But if you do ever have a failure of the blade, Malleus uses a modular construction system, so you can just take that blade off and swap a new one in. But on that note, so far over those 5 months of use, the only burr that ever formed on it was from a longsword. Some other physical attributes of the blade: we have a swelled tip, no rolled tips here, just a solid chunk of steel at the very end, which I prefer to a rolled tip anyway. It looks nicer at a distance, it does not have the melon balling potential of a rolled tip, and if you do need to put a blunt on top of it, it goes on a lot easier. And I find the flex to be pretty forgiving. We also have a schilt, giving you plenty to hide your thumb behind if you want to use it in a thumb grip. And it's a Meyer Rappier, so you probably will at some point. They've got other swords if you want to do this. This is a team thumb grip sword. As for the handling, I'm going to put the specs over here, but I think they've got something really special in this one. When I first got my hands on it, I immediately noticed it had a dual nature to it. This is a cut and thrust sword, and it is truly a cut and thrust sword, or maybe a cut or thrust sword. Hear me out. When you hold it for the cut, it has this authoritative chop. You feel like you have the blade presence to make cuts and beats with it. But when you kick that point forward, and especially if you get the thumb on the schilt to help guide it, the tip becomes very responsive and you can very easily maneuver it wherever you need it to go. As long as you're willing to shift your grip on the fly, you can draw out 2 very distinct handling profiles. But handle. Let's talk about the handle. My one real complaint about this sword is the handle. I think it's too round. It's still an oval shape, more so at the top than the bottom, and you can index your edge with it, but I find that when you actually start to spar with it, especially with gloves on, you can very quickly lose your index, or even worse, the sword can just turn in your hand. It wasn't unusual for me to have an exchange where maybe we go back and forth a few times, and by a certain point, the sword has turned and now I'm swinging the flat at them. Common enough that I kept indexing it with my thumb instead. I don't know for sure, but what I think they're doing here is just extending out the same handle shape that they use on their side swords, but where it's fine on the side sword because you will always be indexing your index against the ricasso there. You don't do that with the Meyer. So even if you're squeezing as hard as you can, it does not take much effort to turn this any which way. In spite of the fact that I think the way they do their leather wraps to be really good for traction with this cord imprint on the leather. And my handle issues continued to the point that the glue actually failed between the leather and the handle, and the leather was just free spinning on the handle. Now that could have just been that the glue just wasn't sufficiently applied, but I genuinely believe the handle shape and how round it was contributed to that failure. And this is the part where I mentioned that Malleus owns up to that and sent a replacement handle and told me that this is standard procedure in their sword warranty. So if you have that happen to you, they will send you a replacement. But it was easy enough just to work some glue back in between the leather and the handle, and I was able to get the original working fine, and I've been using that one since I think it might be a better match to the leather of my scabbard than the replacement. But I don't really know. I've been going back and forth. The handle also appears to be 3D printed. I don't particularly mind that myself, especially if it means they get consistent handle shapes every time, but hopefully they will rework that print file so that it is not quite so round in the future. Beyond that, I only have one nitpick, which is this part of the guard right here. I think this edge is a little too severe. It's not sharp by any means, but it is just enough of an edge that if you are using this barehanded, it can sometimes catch on your knuckle and scrape some skin off if it catches you weird. I get it being kind of chunky from a durability standpoint, but I think they could manage to make that a little bit rounder. And one more piece of feedback, which isn't a complaint or a nitpick, but just wishful thinking, is that it would be really nice if there was an option to get this guard in symmetry. Now, this is a Meyer Rappier. They are pretty much always depicted as asymmetrical, not always this configuration, but asymmetrical. But as a training tool, it's really nice to be able to swap hands and have it handle the same way, regardless of which hand it's in. How many hands was that? But hey, I put this one out to you guys. Would you be more interested in it if it had a second ring as an option? Or are you just one ring is good enough for you? But fortunately, my complaints about this are really easy to address. Just give me a little bit more profile in that handle and I'll be a happy camper. And I have to say, even with it occasionally turning unintentionally in my hand, this is still the most fun I've had with a one-handed sword. I find myself constantly being drawn to pull this out of my sword rack and just swing it around. I've been swinging it between takes of this review. I was just now swinging it idly in the air, completely distracted from filming anything else just because I was having so much fun and it's so satisfying and twirly and it feels delightful. And everybody I have handed this to and let them swing it around and try it out, they have all gotten this big grin on their face because Malleus knows how to make a sword that is a delight to swing around.